United forever in friendship and labor.
So we're looking to launch a group called the Campaign Against Corbynism, which will focus specifically on opposing, obviously Corbyn, but also the ideology he represents. We kind of think of it as like a regressive left ideology, which combines traditionalist socialist economic policy, which we're not actually going to take a position on because we want to get people from the left involved. We want socialists involved in our campaign. But it combines that with sympathy for terrorist groups, for hardline anti-Semites, for dictatorial regimes, for a whole host of very undesirable characters, based on the kind of view that they're somehow anti-imperialistic. It's a very kind of warped interpretation of what anti-imperialism should be. But I think that's very damaging, and there's a lot of people on the left that agree with us, so we're working with quite a few people on the left, and we want to get a lot of people on the left involved. So this isn't a campaign against socialism or against the left or against the Labour Party. It's very specifically a campaign against the kind of regressive left or far left ideology that Corbyn represents, and which I think it would be incredibly dangerous to the country if it's allowed to take root. Well, that's a good question. We're not entirely sure. So our first plan is to do a online launch, which will be happening hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on exactly what happens in the world. And at some point after that, perhaps a month or 6 weeks afterwards, we want to have like a kind of formal launch or launch event. In terms of what we do, we don't want it will start just online. So it will start just on social media. We'll have a website and we'll try and publish research. We hope to publish reports on things like the links between one thing we've started working on is links between the trade unions, some of the quite mainstream British trade unions, and groups like the Venezuela Solidarity Campaign, who apologise for a dictatorial regime or a highly authoritarian regime. In the case, the Cuban Solidarity Campaign, actually dictatorial regime. So we hope to publish reports, publish research, and campaign by social media. But we do hope to move beyond that. So the things we want to do beyond that, this is provisional. We'll change based on what works. We're not committed to a course of action, but we want to do campaigning elections, so particularly bad Corbynite candidates. We want to try and target them. There's a campaign group called Hope Not Hate, who do a lot of work targeting the extreme right, and a lot of their work they do is very, very good. But obviously they come from the extreme right, they don't focus on the extreme left. To some extent we want to mirror what they do, but targeting the extreme left, targeting the Corbynites. So we hope to engage in election campaigning. We're thinking about protests, but we're a little bit iffy about that. But what we might try and do is some kind of stunts, say. For example, if we could get, the Labour Party conference is in October, whenever it is. If we could get a plane to fly over a banner saying the Labour Party is a racist party, that's the kind of thing that should be achievable and would create an impact, create a stir, and I think would help to get a message across. So yeah, those are kind of what we're looking at, but we're very flexible. We're going to be very clear from the point go that this is not a campaign against the left, it's not a campaign against socialism, and partly for that reason we're hoping to have figures from the left in some of our key positions. Well, we wanted to very much not look like a Tory front or anything like that. It needs to look like, it needs to look like what it is, which is a unified campaign. And we're not going to touch on economic policy because, obviously on a personal level I oppose Corbyn on economic grounds as well. But we're focusing more on what we see as the Corbynite failure to adhere to kind of fundamental basic liberal democratic standards in terms of consistently opposing political violence, consistently supporting democracy, parliamentary democracy, and consistently opposing all forms of racism. Those are the three real strands we're going to fight on. And a lot of people on the left, we think, are going to agree with us, and some are already in touch with us. It's very important to us that we don't just become a right-wing campaign. It's broader than that, and it's a campaign specifically against Corbynism, not against the left.
Through the ages, the dream of a people.
Well, if he stands down, first of all, fantastic. We'll have to see who replaces him. So obviously he could be replaced by, say, John McDonnell, who is just about the only person in the Labour Party worse than Corbyn. But if he's replaced by someone like John McDonnell, then we're counting exactly the same thing. If he's not, we still plan to launch the campaign. We may change the name just to reflect the changing circumstances, but it'll focus more on the role of the far left, both in the Labour Party and more generally so, in terms of those who are sympathetic. Because there's a whole plethora of far left parties which don't get anything like as much attention as the far right parties do. And they probably deserve it, because some of them are they're more influential than their number of members would suggest. That they're very good at running front groups and things like that. So someone really should do a better job at combating that, and that's kind of where we hope we can step in. So if Corbyn goes, we'll still launch, we'll still focus on that, but obviously our position towards the Labour Party will be different. So for as long as Corbyn is Labour leader, our position will be that you should not vote Labour in a general election. You can vote Labour in a local election or European election or Scottish Parliament election, Welsh Assembly, etc., etc. But a vote for Labour general election is de facto a vote for a Corbyn government, and a Corbyn government is, we regard, beyond the pale in terms of the three core factors I mentioned earlier, which is Corbyn and many of those around him's past sympathy towards political violence and groups that advocate it, or association with groups that advocate political violence, their past association with various dictatorships, and their past association with anti-Semitic racists. And for those three reasons, I mean, any one of those would be enough to make him completely unsuitable for government. But combine all three, he's completely unsuitable. And any vote for Labour in a general election is de facto a vote for Corbyn government. So.
Long live our Soviet motherland.